Hey, everybody.
Hi, Ariane.
Hi.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Tired, but I'm okay. So it's just, I just see two people plus Ariana.
Yeah, there's only
so,
4 of us in the meeting.
but 3 of us are board members or EPB members, so we do have quorum.
Yeah.
Where? Oh, yeah, Paco.
Okay. All right. So Ariana, you want to? Should we go ahead and get started?
Yeah. Yeah, we're ready.
Rachel, Jonathan, any reason why we wouldn't start?
I don't know.
No.
Are we waiting for, isn't Noah supposed to be here?
He may attend, but he's not an official board member yet.
Oh, okay.
Fiona may be coming in, but I haven't seen her or I haven't heard anything. And I didn't send out any kind of pre-notice for this meeting. And next time we're in person, so this will be the last of the Zoom approaches.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and to start, Rachel.
Sure, go ahead. I wanted to make sure I was here because you no longer have a liaison to the planning board.
Yeah. It's currently vacant.
Oh,
All right, I'll go ahead and start then, Ariana.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we'll call to order the meeting of the Village Environmental Policy Board for July 13th, 2021. My name is Ted Nitz. I'm the chair of the Environmental Policy Board Village. I'll have everybody else introduce themselves. Also, Jonathan, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Jonathan Kolb, and I'm a member of the Village of New Paltz Environmental Policy Board.
Okay, and then Rachel.
I'm Rachel Lagodka, and I'm on the Environmental Policy Board, and now also on the Planning Board.
And Ariana.
I'm Ariana Basco. I'm the assistant to the mayor and the village board, and also the clerk for these meetings.
Excellent. All right. If there's any comments, questions, concerns for the Environmental Policy Board, please do use the email address for us. It's environment@villageofnewpaltz.org. For that, Ariana, can you share the screen for the agenda?
Sure.
We've called the meeting to order. We usually give the opportunity for the public to comment. I don't see anyone here this evening, but note that next time we should be back in person. There'll be opportunities, as there are every meeting, for the public to offer comments. There's no public hearing scheduled for this evening. Administrative actions, we have the agenda in front of us. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
A second.
Sure. Yes.
So it's been moved by Rachel and seconded by Jonathan. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. We have the minutes from June 8th. Our meeting last was kind of short. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from June 8th.
Okay.
Second.
All right, so moved and seconded. Any discussion on the June 8th minutes? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We don't have any claims this evening. The announcements, the town of New Paltz's MS4, which is Stormwater Water Quality Report, is available on the town's website. The public comment period has expired, but if there is any questions, you can certainly contact the town about that. MS4 is a stormwater quality awareness and educational program, keeps the pollution out of the rivers and streams by monitoring what gets into the stormwater in the first place. The next item is the village planning board update. We don't have a liaison right now, but Rachel is on the planning board. Rachel, do you want to provide us any kind of update on the New Paltz Apartments, the pit project, or anything else from those meetings?
Well, sure. Our last meeting lasted for 3 hours because we went through the whole draft scoping of the for the New Paltz Apartments, and there were numerous issues that were raised, and I had a lot of questions, some of which I don't feel I've gotten an answer to yet, really. And we all discussed it. And you know, they're putting together all of the forms, and I guess those can be available to you as well. The main issue, I guess, or you know, there are many issues with a project this size, is that we really, you know, we don't have all the information yet. You know, and there were sort of places on the FEAF that, you know, that hadn't, you know, boxes that sort of hadn't been ticked. And so we went through, you know, for that, but it's a very large project. If it's going to increase the population by between 500 and 700 people, I think that represents a fairly high percentage of the village population. I'm not sure whether it's 5% or not. I mean, that was one of the questions, whether the project would increase the population by that much or not. If you consider I guess the college included. And in terms of the environmental effects, we discussed the possibility of their clustering the project. It's kind of shaped like the Big Dipper. And so to cluster it, you would kind of remove the handle. We're, you know, sort of looking at other options. We did go on a site visit, and we saw where the majority of the project is going to be, and it's sort of it is a you know, a slightly depressed area of land, but there are numerous concerns. You know, it had a previous agricultural use, so you know, things like lead and arsenic were used because of the, you know, that's what they used to use as pesticides for apples. And so the soil, there may be some contamination issues with the soil, so we need to know about, you know, the cut and the fill, where is it going? The impacts on the, you know, the traffic and everything else, where we hired consultants, and then the next step is that they're going to produce these studies that show, you know, what sorts of impacts it's going to have. And then one of the issues that was brought up by our lawyer was that we definitely discuss the cumulative impacts, because there are so many projects sort of either online or in the pipeline right now, so that when we're looking at how does a project of this size affect the community, we should also be looking at all the other projects that are due to go online for the sewer and water. And so we have a little bit of time to look into that, but not much. And I believe they're going to come back with, preliminary studies, and we're going to, discuss the project again. I don't think any of the, we haven't had too much weigh-in from the interested parties yet, or from the involved parties. So that'll happen, but this is all happening at once because the seeker review is sort of done in conjunction with the annexation, which is, it's all sort of part of it. And then there were just, I don't know if you have any questions you want to ask me. It was 3 hours of the meeting, and most of it was taken up by that project.
And Rachel, so I was at the town's planning board meeting last night, and it was similarly done. It was at least 2 hours or something about that, talking about the same scoping study as an interested party. To clarify, the scoping study that's being reviewed or approved, that would give the marching orders to the applicant, right? Into what they need to review, review, put together a plan, and say how those individual items be addressed, right? The scoping study is not considered a final document, it's considered one of the first documents.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They still have to then, I guess the next step after that is the draft environmental impact statement and all of the study. I was very curious about how the Army Corps of Engineers fits into this, and I was told that they're going to delineate the wetlands, and that their delineation is not subject to any sort of dispute or examination. And I find that kind of difficult because I really would like to be, be there when the field study's made. I'd like to actually see what they're looking at, and I've made some attempts to try to be on that visit, but so far I've not succeeded. I don't understand why only the client goes on that visit, but not the planning board. Or not anyone from the planning board. So I'm waiting to find out more about that.
Did they tell you that you're not allowed to go?
Well, I mean, I guess if you look at the recording of the meeting, you can see exactly what Rich said to me. It was very discouraging, let me put it that way. But I don't understand, because I know that with other projects that have come up, we've had independent wetlands delineations that were done in order to, that was something that the environmental board would do. So I guess that's something I would ask you about.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is that common practice on a project like this for the Corps of Engineers to just be able to have such a responsibility and solely being able to delineate the wetlands? Is that like a common practice?
I don't know. This is the first. I mean, I've been through multiple projects, and it seems to me that, I mean, I guess that maybe they were those other projects might have been more contentious at the time or something, but I remember, we used a wetland study for Stoneleigh Woods that was done by Hudsonia, and we field checked it ourselves. The environmental commission at the time field checked it ourselves, and that was, considered admissible when we were discussing the project. So I don't know. I'm in new territory here. I'm used. I want to do the right thing. I just want to, I don't want to step on any toes, but I also want to be as thorough as possible and figuring out, what the impacts are. And so one thing we did do was we increased the area to 1 mile. It was originally half a mile. So the area that they have to study is now a mile diameter, which extends all the way, into town. I was mainly concerned about the wetlands that are on campus, because they've mentioned the, oh boy, here we go. Close the door. They mentioned the federal wetland that's on the southern end of the property, but there are clearly wetlands on the northern edge of it, which, as I was telling them, there was a beaver impoundment there in 2019, which was the campus put in he's calling it a beaver deceiver, but a culvert device. But theoretically, the beavers, could come back, and it's definitely filled with wetland plants, and there are streams running throughout it. And this is the area that's like just adjacent to the property. And that area over there is also, the students, it's right adjacent to the area where the students kind of have like bird houses, and they look for, the biology students have been keeping track of the birds. Of course, there are more birds when there was a beaver impoundment, because the aquatic environment provides more food and habitat for the birds. But it's still pretty wet back there. It's not a nice big pond like it used to be.
All right, well, Rachel, I think on the one point, I think it's worth following up, because the Army Corps of Engineers is a regulatory agency. They're not if you or I were to be developing a project, we can't hire the Army Corps of Engineers to go out and do our wetland delineations for us. They're a regulatory agency. If somehow it's in their jurisdiction, they would review permit applications or waivers or something like that. But the Army Corps doesn't usually do wetland delineations for hire. I would say, especially for a private development.
I don't know. I may have got it wrong. I don't know about the hire part. That part that didn't enter into the discussion for me. I wanted to be on the visit. I wanted to see. I wanted to learn, because I feel like these are all like learning opportunities. If we're going out there with an expert, and I've taken numerous trainings, and so I'm very curious, and I would like to not just look at a map as an end product, but I'd like to be there when the map is being made, so that I can see what I can see the same thing they saw. You know what I mean? Oh my God. Someone is at the door, or was at the door, and they just can't take it.
So is there anything else from the New Paltz Apartments topic that you want to share with us?
There probably is, that I'm not thinking of right now. I've been very I've been working a lot of overtime, so I'm kind of tired. There probably is. If there's anything you can think of that you have any questions you have for me, or anything you want to know that I can answer, please just ask me, and I'll answer as best as I can.
Okay. Well, the other project listed is the Lalo Pit project. Any updates on that project?
Well, it's interesting. The information that I have on that project actually came from reading an article in the New Paltz Times that was reporting that was done on a village board meeting. And apparently they came up with all these old things that were in the deed, like some stipulations that they can only develop 15% of it, and other stipulations that, I had never heard of before. And that's the only time I heard about any of this. So I would really like to know. I'd like if someone could follow up on that. Or I don't know, Ariana, do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, but there isn't any information that the village board has. I happen to know that a local reporter is doing the research. But
Yes.
But the village board does not have any more information than what was like talked about at that meeting, which
that was in the article.
Is this a more recent article?
No, this was a while back.
Okay. A while back,
They
they did the research and found that basically it stopped. There was a whatever happened with the deed. I don't remember all the details, but it was not. The attorneys decided that it was a done deal, that the things that needed to be done in order to make it allowable for these guys to build on it were done. But others don't believe that to be necessarily the case and are going back to the meeting minutes from the 60s and 70s.
Okay, so I think that's very interesting, because I mean, if you think about it, that's what planning is all about. You plan for the future. And I know that one of the topics that's been brought up many, many times is that we don't really have sort of a central square. You know what I mean? The closest thing we have to like a village square would be like a Water Street Market, but we don't have any sort of area. And I think that might have been sort of part of their consideration. And then also, just I guess the idea that this is the last, tree covered open space. I know that when we discussed the project, we discussed, having a buffer between, on the side where the school and the park is, that area should be, left relatively treed, and that the stream should be kept open. They shouldn't just pipe the stream, especially if we went to all the trouble to daylight it at Peace Park. So I know that we discussed that, but I don't know what the result is of all that research. I think it's fascinating. But I guess, lawyers will argue one way or the other about all of it, right?
I mean, I think that they just were satisfied by what was found when they looked up the deed at the county level.
Uh-huh. Okay. So there's nothing really that new about that project then. There are more questions at this point, I think, than there are answers. But I think that the developer seemed pretty amenable to, we just sort of informally talked one day, and he seemed amenable to keeping the stream open, and he seemed to understand about keeping a buffer. I mean, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. I think we just have to just keep it open and just keep talking about it. I mean, obviously, nobody wants something that's going to make everybody miserable. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there was this discussion about housing. I mean, the housing was taken out. And maybe one of the things we talked about was having the housing come back in, but maybe having the housing be for people who work at the hotel, so that, that involves less traffic, less transportation. I don't know. I mean, I guess the scale of the project needs to really be talked about, how it fits in. Yeah, I don't know, that's fairly open right now. It's just basically still being discussed.
Okay. The next topic was critical environmental areas. In the past, it's always been to follow in series after the town resolves what critical environmental areas they may or may not designate. We talked a little bit in the past about a Millbrook area, and then that was decided that it would not be feasible or allowable on a site by site or parcel by parcel area. Any other updates on the topic of critical environmental areas related to the planning board? Rachel?
No, we haven't heard anything about that. That's a town issue. I think we've tried it in the village before. It's one of those ideas that keeps coming up. The DEC recommends it, but then somehow it always gets shot down for one reason or another. So I don't really know. I don't know what's going on with that right now.
Okay. Any questions regarding the village planning board for Rachel? I think, next time I think we'll talk about a new liaison for the planning board with the current absence that we have. Maybe by next meeting, we may have a fifth member in place also, and so that can be a good conversation. But I put that on the radar, folks. The next time we probably talk about who would want to be a liaison, or if we go back to doing it in turn. And that's the same way that the town's environmental conservation board does it now. It's by turn instead of a single person. The next item is awareness and collaboration report of the town's environmental conservation board. That's something I'm involved with. Like I said earlier, there was a town planning board meeting last night that I attended on behalf of the conservation board. A majority of the discussion was the same village or the New Paltz apartments and the scoping study. And much like Rachel had described, the town planning board went item by item, page by page, in excess of 2 hours to make sure that the scoping document was appropriately commented on. So I would imagine that the comments that Rachel's talking about and the comments from the town would all need to be addressed as a final scoping study that the applicant would need to put back together for the planning. Next item is EPB reports. Plastic bags. I have noticed, I will say anecdotally, that I think things are reverting back to the state and county practice, and where we see it the most is with restaurants. I think restaurants are starting to use plastic bags more often because in the county and town, or the county and state laws, they were allowed to, whereas in the village areas they were not beforehand. We've had a number of discussions about if there's anything that can be done at the local level, more stringent, things like that. Now that the most recent legislative session at the state level is over, perhaps in the next couple of months we readdress that issue and see if there's things that are possible or of interest to the village or the town in regards to plastic bags. Now that the other laws the dust has settled. Bee City and the Village Ecoscaping Project. It's summertime. I don't know if I don't see Riley here. Rachel, do you have anything, or Ariana, on the village, the update of the Village Ecoscaping Project?
I mean, the plantings were done. There's a deer fence around them. The mulch continues to be underneath the benches. But I don't know if there's anything that any of us are going to do about that. But that's one complaint I've had about it, is that when people sit in the benches, the mulch is just piled up at their feet. And it's not ideal for, maybe less able-bodied folks. But other than that, the plants seem to be doing pretty well. I know Tim sent around some photos of a squirrel digging some up. But so the squirrels are definitely doing that.
Yes, no, that answered a big mystery for me, because I would always plant things there and it would always be dug up. So he actually caught the squirrel that's doing it?
He caught a squirrel in action, took photos of it.
Oh, geez. Well, good for him. Squirrels.
All right. Well, I've walked by also. It looks great.
Yeah, the plants look like they're doing pretty well.
They do, yeah.
Certainly gotten plenty of rain for it. And,
certainly, that's true.
So it's a little bit humorous to me that we need deer fences at the village hall, but that's exactly what's necessary, because I've certainly seen it in my share of times, driving home late at night and stuff like that. So, okay.
I have pictures of two little babies that I think they were born in the area where they want to put the skate park. I have pictures of them in that grassy area where they're planning to put the skate park. Two little baby spotted deer. They're adorable.
Yeah. Okay, so the next item is composting in the village. Fiona, Annabelle, both are not here this evening. We'll look for next time on an update for that. Raw water source protection study. That group is still meeting. I'm a part of that. So is Ariana, the mayor. Other members. We have had some tours, some visits up to the water plant, and I think we're within a month or two of issuing some draft reports. from that. And I think that that'll be interesting to see. And then there's also a town and village training session coming up, I think August 3rd. That's available or village and town officials to learn more about source water protection. And is it this? So the meeting is not this coming Thursday. When would that be, Ariana? That would be.
It's the second Thursday of each month, so it would be, the next one isn't until August.
Right, okay.
After the land use training that they're doing.
All right. And then next item is banning regulations of leaf blowers. Does someone want to talk about that topic? I don't know that we've made, or it's been offered for consideration, but I don't know if we have an update on that or not.
I don't have any updates. Sorry, I just came from a root canal. But I did just circle back by email to you, Jonathan, if you wanted to, because I know you'd expressed interest. And now that got through this particular root canal, I can exist a little bit more in all sorts of times when I'm not at work. So we'll circle back.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking to get involved with that for sure. You know, any way I can. So I'll definitely circle back with you later.
Sorry, I lost my screen. Okay. Any other EPB reports, any topics that we've been talking about before we move on to old business? Okay, so Assembly Bill 3611 under old business. Alex, any update on that, or now that the session's over with, is that carrying over to next session, or how did that end up? Sorry to put you on the spot. If I knew, I'd
No, it's all good. I'm like, I just couldn't find the button. It didn't make any move at all. On the, it's an assembly bill, and this is what I find interesting is like it never even made like a movement out of committee. It was introduced and it's still in committee. So like they didn't even push it anywhere. But let me just look really quickly at the other versions of it. Yeah, and there still is no same as. So I guess we'll see next year.
Okay.
But on like a kind of related note, I don't know, to definitely related to you know, EPB for sure. You know, a couple different laws did pass that have to do with like birds and bees and stuff. So you know, that's good, you know, a few pollinator laws. And I can share those actual ones and let you all know when they get signed into law if they haven't yet already.
Yeah, that'd be great. Next item is idling laws. I've not heard of any updates on that. The next topic takes us to budget and budget and spending for the EPB. I don't know that we've spent anything since our expenditures for the village ecoscaping project. Is there any other things that have hit since then? And now we're in a new budget year, right?
There have not been any other expenses. We're now in the new fiscal year. So we have this additional 500 again. And I just figured I would keep this on the agenda. And then if there's ever money being spent, I'll add it here and we can always know what the budget is.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Any other old business? Okay. Under new business, there's nothing listed, but I do have something I want to introduce. If I could share the screen.
I can stop sharing so you can share.
Okay, please do. Yeah, or if you could.
All right, you're good to go.
So this has Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, you guys all see that? All right, so this is
Yep.
a study that's been talked about last couple of meetings for a remaining capacity review for the village's wastewater treatment plant. It's based on a report that was done a couple years ago, which was based on a study that was done a couple years before that, that seeks to identify how much wastewater capacity remains with the village's wastewater treatment plant. An intern working with me and then myself, we worked on this. We reached out to the mayor's office, planning board. We went through the planning board documents, and we also followed up with some of the developers working on projects like this. We also met with the staff at the wastewater treatment plant. And what we did a couple of years ago is I went through this report, and then the environmental policy board recommended that it be accepted and then forwarded to the village board, and the village board asked for a short meeting to describe what the contents were. And so I'd like to proceed along that same pathway if we can, but not tonight. All I wanted to do was introduce the topic tonight. It's a 17-page report. I'll send it to the link for all of us to look at if you get a chance. If you have any questions about it, you can certainly ask. I'll point out some of the highlights of it as we go through. The introduction talks about how the wastewater treatment plant is running, how or what kind of projects have already been spoken for, ones that are in the pipeline, and then how many are left over after that. The tables are the best way to follow this project or follow this report if you do look at it. Table 1 talks about the average flows from 2019 and 20, and then Table 2 looks at it in more detail, looking at just the highest 6 months, because we're in a college town. The highest 6 months are usually a better barometer of how things are going than the average of the whole year, because that focuses on the months of the year that students are in place. Table 3 compares it to the design flow. So then you get your first cut at what's left over. And then Table 4 examines what kind of overflows or problems that the sewer system has had. If it's a long list, it's considered a chronic issue or a problem. If it's a short list like this is, then it's not as much, or certainly something to still pay attention to. Then what we looked at was Table 5 is a listing of all the planning board projects that have been proposed or filed as paperwork since 2018, and looks at what's still not built yet but's been approved. So it's in the pipeline, it's on its way to being put in place. 194 household equivalents is what the math came up with. And then Table 6 looks at what other undeveloped land or redevelopment projects are anticipated for the village areas, like the old box factory next to Water Street, the former Stewart site, what's going to happen with that, and for other projects. And then Table 7 looks at allocations that have been made to the town. What has the town been contracted to, or what's the town using or planning to use? Table 8 is usually a popular one. It's what is going on with SUNY. What does SUNY New Paltz have planned for the future as to additional buildings or additional residence halls or improvements to residence halls that would result in more use for that? And then Table 9 starts to summarize all of it together. Table 10 then
Question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Are SUNY planning did they change their mind, or do you know whether they're planning to increase enrollment? Did that question come up at all?
Okay, so I'll dive into that topic. So SUNY New Paltz is still of the position that they are not planning to make improvements to the SUNY campus that would result in more students, but they are planning on making improvements that would increase we'll say the facilities per student. or increase the laboratory space, administrative space, more investment per capita, but not improvements that would be, expanding the footprint, we'll say, or the number of students that are expected to be there. If you're able to see the things that they have listed, they aren't planning more residence halls, but they are planning on renovating two of the residence halls, Wasting and Mohonk, which would actually slightly increase the number of beds, but within the same residence halls that are there. And then older residence halls, the college and the Shango, they're planning to repurpose those for academic uses. So the residence halls would go away, or the uses, but inside the same buildings, they'd be repurposed for administrative use. There is a new academic building on the planning blocks, but it's been on the planning blocks, from what I understand, for almost a generation. It's planned for, but there's no funding, there's no sketches, there's no scope as to what that new academic building would be. And then the southern planning area, 40 acres, is still a southern planning area. It's available to the SUNY campus, but there's no real strong candidates or development plans or what they would do with that if it ever comes up. The total impact then, if you look at decommissioning residence halls, renovating residence halls, and a new academic building, you end up with a net of about 12,400 gallons of flow, of anticipated flow per year, per day, as an increase, which is about 40 houses. So if you look at the reductions and the increases, the net impact is about 40 houses more if everything on that table ended up being built tomorrow. But even SUNY says it's being phased in over a number of years. Does that answer your question, Rachel?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. We enjoy, reaching
Wow,
out.
that's a great report. I can't wait to look at it.
Yeah, we will send it out here right after the meeting's over. And then what you do then with table 10 and table 11 is start to identify how much remaining capacity, what it means, how many more houses or how much more development or redevelopment or whatever that the community would decide to do with that leftover or remaining capacity. What is it in numbers? And the range is somewhere between 600 and 950, 960 houses worth is what is left and available in the wastewater treatment plant as a capacity once everything else has been spoken for. So it doesn't necessarily direct the village to grow, but it identifies it as a resource that could be utilized by the community or not. And it could be used for anything from redevelopment to septic relief to new businesses or new homes or other things. But like I said, what I wanted to do is just introduce the report. It's in draft format now. We will send it out, and I would hope to talk about it in more detail, questions, concerns at the next time we meet.
Thanks so much for that, Ted.
Yeah, no problem. Nikita Orshkov is the intern. He goes back to school here within a month. He's done great work with it. He's been to the water plant up on Mountain Rest Road well, more times than I have in the last month or so. So he's doing really good work.
Yeah, that definitely looks really thorough. I'm really eager to read that.
We'll send it out. Any other questions or concerns?
Yes. Do you know what they're going to do with the old Stewart site?
No, but you know what? At the planning board meeting last night, that came up. And I went on a tour of net zero about a week ago, and that question came up. That seems to be the big topic of conversation. I did notice that they are removing or have removed already the tanks. The gas tanks are out of the ground and gone. I think they're well, it appears they're demolishing a portion or maybe all of the site, but it does look like Stewart's as a corporate entity is getting out of the liability that may be from having an old gas station. But I've not heard anything on the street or anecdotally or officially as to who might be interested in buying that site or doing something with it.
You know
Anyone
what?
else?
Can the town or the village buy it and just like put food trucks there or something for the pool? Because that's where all the kids go to, they would go to Stewart's, and now it's not there. They moved it to a more inconvenient location for the pool, I think. I mean, it's not that much further, but I don't know. I think it's nice to have a space there for kids right by the stream.
I've not heard anything along those lines. I don't know. Well, I imagine the town or the village could be just as eligible as the private sector to buy that site if they were interested.
I think we should buy it.
And then Ariana, I don't know where we're at on the agenda. I don't have, can you put it back up, please? I think we're in new business. Is there any other new business?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I don't think that there is any other new business unless somebody else has something.
Any other items of interest for the EPB? With that, I'll remind our viewing audience as well as the members that our next meeting is planned to be in person back at the Village Hall. They're always on the second Tuesday of the month at 5:30 p.m. But next month we will plan to be at the Village Hall for that meeting. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second. Oh, wait, am I muted? Hold on.
No, you're available. So
Okay.
it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all for coming. Ariana, if you don't mind, if we could stick around, this has been